Hi, my name is Scott Sheely. I'm an agency development manager here at Google, and I'm joined today by Alex Porter of Location 3. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us.
Fantastic. So we wanted to bring Location 3 into the studio today to talk a little bit about their unique approach with franchises. I'm just really glad that we were able to get together.
Yeah. What we wanted to talk about today was really how to leverage the power of Google's tools to help out with your customer acquisition, specifically around AdWords and a number of the other Google products.
Definitely. So we'll have a lot of content for you, but really quickly just wanted to kick it off by talking a little bit about the big trend in search that Location 3, probably not by accident, has a namesake with, but it's all about local, right?
It is. We were founded in 1999. Just shortly after Google, actually, and a little bit ahead of our time in that Location 3 really stands for location, location, location. And since 2011, people searching for near me has increased 34 times and doubled just in the last year alone. And this really is following the trend of mobile and the adoption of the smartphone. And it's just the way that we all search these days. We look for things near us. We want to find something, we want to find it now.
Absolutely, and obviously, I mean, I have to say this, of course, being here at Google, those local searches are happening on search engines, primarily, which we're talking about Google here. So a little bit more into this. If we think about the implications of this in terms of the online to offline, 50% of consumers actually visit a store within 1 day of an online search.
I'm actually surprised it's not higher.
I'm surprised it's not higher, too. I think this is sort of an aggregate of industries.
Maybe we just can't measure it.
Probably, right, but we're getting better at that.
Right, and I think the stat is around 20% of those searches actually lead to a purchase within that same day. I mean, you think about it, it makes sense. You're looking for, a pharmacy near me, a coffee shop near me. You're doing that for a reason. You want to take action, you want to go interact with that location immediately.
Yep, so I don't want to steal a lot of thunder here. We've got a lot of great content lined up. Location 3 is a premier partner that I've worked with, had the pleasure of working with for a little bit over a year now, and we're going to tell you a little bit more in the preceding sections. But Alex, thanks again for being here.
Thank you, and thanks to Google for allowing us to have this partnership. It's great to be able to interact with you guys, understand about new product offerings. The amount of data and intelligence that you can provide us about the industry is really helpful when we plan out our strategies for our franchise clients.
Absolutely. So up next, we'll have Josh Allen join and talk a little bit more about that approach, and hope you enjoy.
So a big thanks to Scott and the Google team for having us here in the Google Hangout. Bringing up Josh Allen, who is the Director of Sales and Marketing, very influential at Location 3 as it relates to the franchise space. Tell us a little bit about why we're here.
Franchise marketing. And franchise marketing, I think, specifically on Google. With all the tools available, not just in digital, but on Google specifically, to really take advantage of for franchise businesses, I think a big question that we always kind of ask ourselves, especially on behalf of clients, is really how do you stand out, whether it's at the brand level or even at the location level. So I know we're going to kind of dive into some tactics, but that's always the thing we're trying to answer, I think.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, Location 3 has been around since 1999. We've been working in the franchise space for the past 10 years. And it's a really unique space in the sense that whether you have 100 locations or over 1,000 locations, you're really dealing with each individual location as its own small business entity. So with that comes a lot of challenges, but also opportunities to really kind of balance this national and local marketing.
Absolutely. So to your point, we talk about this all the time. You kind of have these brand marketing initiatives, the brand strategy, and then really those hyper-local efforts and hyper-local optimizations. So we kind of look at it in a lot of ways that it's how do you find that right mix? How do you balance the two so you have an effective brand strategy that's really consistent across the board for all locations? But we know, as you said, each location is really unique. It's it's a small business in that sense.
Right.
So how do we tailor those strategies to drive customers to individual business locations?
Yeah, and the way that we've found this to be most optimized is by leveraging various technologies and a lot of the tools that Google provides us with really smart people. So you have to know the franchise space. It's such a unique space that we have really great people, and you'll meet one of them here in just a minute. But by the combination of understanding how franchises work at that national and local level, and then leveraging Google's tools, has really been what we found to be incredibly successful.
Yeah, when we talk about kind of balancing this national and local strategy, when we look at Google in particular, it's all about page one. This isn't really a secret to anyone. Roughly 95% of clicks occur on page one, whether that's a blend of organic, maps results, paid search ads, you name it. And so you can kind of see there's no rhyme or reason, whether it's around a particular vertical. There's no necessarily structured way as to how your individual result is going to appear ahead of your competitors. So that's kind of where strategies and tactics come into play, both at that brand and national level. But if you're not on page one, chances are customers aren't really finding your business.
Yeah, and as it relates to the near me searches, I mean, most of those are happening on a mobile device. So your real estate is even smaller.
Yep.
So it really is about kind of outsmarting the competition, because you only have this much space to kind of get your brand in front of that user searching for you right in that moment. So it's up to us as an agency to make sure that those right keywords find the right people at the right time.
So there's a couple different approaches that we often see in the franchise space and the multi-location space, if you will. And we really classify these in a lot of ways as the centralized approach versus the decentralized approach. A quick summary of the centralized approach is really where everything is managed and dictated from the top down, while providing support at the location level, whether that's around best practices, key Google tools, opportunities, versus the decentralized system is, we often refer to as the wild, wild west. You have the brand kind of operating marketing programs on their own, whether that's at a national or local level. And then really the individual business owners and franchisees are kind of partnering. Maybe they're running things on themselves. They're using different vendors. They're using different strategies in different markets, and it kind of really becomes a fragmented approach in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think a number of years ago, it was very much more a decentralized approach to a number of the franchise systems that we worked with, because digital was relatively new to them. But I think that when we think about the best approach, it really is, we found this centralized approach. We like to partner with the head of marketing at the brand, really understand their strategy and their goals, and help bring that to life at the local level.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot of benefits to this, right? Apples to apples KPI reporting, a clearer understanding of how things are, different strategies and tactics are complementing each other. What's working in one region can use to complement another region. I think one of the biggest things that we often find, particularly when you talk paid search or paid media in general, a huge reduction in wasteful spending. Oftentimes, individual locations might be bidding on brand terms while the national brand marketing team is doing exactly the same, so they're competing against one another. So there's a lot of benefits, both organizationally, but certainly when it comes to reducing that wasted spend and making the most of your investment.
Yeah, and even just with the brand, right? So this franchise system has spent a lot of time and energy to bringing this idea to life, and they have this company and this brand identity. The last thing you want is to have that haphazardly marketed across people's territories. So number one, you're allowed to, you can control that brand messaging and make sure it's consistent and on brand. And then the other really big one is territory compliance. So most franchise systems sell territories. You're allowed to market in certain zip codes, certain DMAs, that sort of thing. If it is the wild, wild west, as you mentioned, you could have one franchisee going rogue and buying ads in areas that they aren't approved. And if there's no centralized control, then there's absolutely no way for anyone to figure that out. And that really leads to kind of some other important account considerations. Number one really being funding, and number two, reporting.
Right, funding, huge question to start with, and I think this is one that even in centralized systems that we often find, it's right out of the gate there's some mistakes that are made. And I think, or at least not necessarily mistakes, but maybe that question isn't considered as much as it should be. Is that funding coming from national ad campaigns? Do they take a percentage of that advertising fund and distribute it equally across individual franchisees and locations? And then as you said, from a reporting standpoint, how is that information rolled up? Who has access to that? Is it just the brand team? Are franchisees allowed access to see how their marketing dollars, especially if they are committing their own funds to those campaigns, how are they performing? and how can they have a better understanding of how that digital marketing is really impacting their business at the local level.
Yeah, I think the key here really is just transparency, right? You're a franchisee. I'm running my own business. I'm doing everything from the hiring to who's cleaning up at night. I just want to understand what I'm getting for my efforts, right? So I think the reporting transparency is really key. Where is the money coming from? Where is it going? And what am I getting for it?
Yep.
Some of the, and Boyd is going to get into this more specifically, but we've seen really great success by a partnership here.
Yep.
The kind of the corporate ad fund is contributing or seeding or helping out during promotional periods. They're engaging with a partner like us to help provide that reporting and service at the local level, because there's so much that goes into this effort, that to be able to provide that trust, and I really think that's a key word here, is trust, that the individual franchisee trusts the brand, that they are doing the right things for them on their behalf, and really transparency through the data really allows them at the end of the day to know that things are going well and I can focus on running my business.
Yeah, and I think it helps grow the business organically, right? The more trust is established, the more consistency is established, the more engaged individual franchisees and business owners become.
Engaged is a key word there as well.
Absolutely.
So one of the reasons why we love partnering with Google is because all those things we talked about, reporting and optimization and technology and tools, is something that Google provides us to help with our franchise partners. So everything here starts with keywords. And this is an area that we're going to dive into each one of these sections very specifically, but it all starts with what keywords you're bidding on. There's different match types, there's negative keywords, and on and on and on. The targeting has gotten so much better. 10 years ago, how you would target was kind of like throw a dart at the map and hope it worked.
Right.
But then also these budget assessments, so you can get these market share reports or impression share reports where you say, okay, I've picked my keywords. How often am I showing up for my customers? So we can go back and then say, hey, if you spent 20% more, you're likely to get 40% more leads and things like that. Next, and almost more important than anything else, is the ad copy. You do that search, I do a search for gym near me, that ad copy, it's got to be compelling. That click-through rate is so crucial. We want to get people to click for a call, click for directions. We need that engagement. That is your one and only shot to do it. And then kind of last but not least is how much you're paying for it.
Right.
This is an auction environment. So I can go in and bid $1 for this keyword if it's in this geo, this time of day. Those settings go on and on and on again. But the smarter you get that bid, that's really, at the end of the day, how you're going to outsmart your competition.
Absolutely.
So we are going to go really in depth in all of these tactics and tools that we've just talked about. So we're going to bring in Boyd Hathaway, who heads up our franchise division. And here we go.
Let's do it. All right, so as Alex said, there's a lot of different things that we can do with Google products to really help drive customers into franchise locations. We've got our head of franchise services at Location 3, Boyd Hathaway, here. What we often talk about a lot at Location 3 is how paid search can really provide an incredible ROI for a small investment if you are a franchisee. But there are some kind of best practices that you really need to establish, and some consistency, as we touched on in the beginning, that's really going to help things run smoothly across the entire system. As we know, it really all starts with the account structure at the top. So segmentation is critical. Right out of the gate, whether it's by campaign, by ad group, and all of kind of those layers that go into it. So when we're talking at the individual franchisee level, or even at the brand level, give us a sense of, in your experience, how really that structure plays a key role out of the gate.
Yeah, so from the top down, really, for each location, you want to have a separate campaign, and possibly two if you have a brand and non-brand approach. But each campaign needs to have its own geo-targeted area, its own budgets. We have locations that have budgets that range from $100 to $3,000. Right. Covering 5 to 20 zip codes. So you have to manage the budgets at the campaign level. And then from there you have your ad group structure, which is typically going to be your product set, the services that you offer. And then within that, you have the unique ads, the keywords, and the landing pages that are all unique to each location at the lowest level.
So, a little bit more to really that local structure is key. It's not really just a blanket approach, even by region, even by zip code. You mentioned, one account could have multiple zip codes, right? So when we start to really segment it at a local level for franchisees, how does that really work and what is most effective?
I think customization is most effective at the local level because you have to think about the structure of keyword bids, for example. You are going to most likely have different bids for a campaign running in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, as opposed to one running in New York City.
Precisely.
Because the competitiveness of those two areas are completely different. Geo-targeting is going to be unique, of course, for each location, each campaign. Call extensions, you want to make sure that you have the right phone number for each location, location extensions. Really, the ads kind of feed into that unique piece of the campaign structure. Everything above that is kind of standardized. However, at the local level, not all two companies within one system are the same. Not all two centers are the same. So maybe they offer different products or services. So you want to offer that customization at the local level to give a little bit of flexibility for the franchise owner so they can turn on and off different products or different ad groups.
Right, and really it's all about the user experience.
Yep.
From a keyword perspective, right, there's a lot of different segmentation we can do from keywords. We build thousands and thousands of keywords for even individual locations in some cases, right? And so I think a really good point to start at is evaluating kind of who's bidding and who is responsible for brand keywords and non-brand keywords. In some instances, we find it's really effective for brand marketing teams to kind of own those branded keywords across the entire board. This obviously gets into who's funding the campaign, as we touched on a little bit earlier. But sometimes really, individual franchisees and locations can get an incredible ROI on those non-branded keywords, particularly as they start to build out into more longer tail terms.
Right.
When we talk about kind of broad versus exact, right? You always want to have that strong kind of broad structure to really get those top of funnel searches. But we always talk about a lot how the closer we can get to that exact match term, there's a lot of benefits both from a budget standpoint, from a targeting standpoint, and really a conversion standpoint.
Yep, and I think just to add to that, all those local terms, those geo terms, you want to build that out from the start, and then from there, you just monitor search queries and continue to build out your keyword list and just improve the campaign over time. And that's really the goal here, is to have improvement month over month. For these campaigns. And
customization at the local level, as you said before, whether it's products, services you offer, particular calls to action, if it's a membership versus an email sign up, whatever's most important to them, those need to be considered even at the keyword level as well.
Exactly.
Territory compliance, we touched on this a little bit earlier. I think this is incredibly important within franchise systems, but even if a brand is not a franchise and you have multiple locations, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be bidding in the same areas as other locations within the same brand. The budget implications and the wasteful budget that we touched on are obvious. What kind of do you see as a best practice really when it comes to territory compliance?
Well, this is a big one. A lot of the systems that come to us, they have dedicated zip codes per location. This is ideal situation where each location does have their own list of zip codes. But we can also deploy radius targeting around each location as well. There's strategies for very dense, highly populated metro areas, that we use as well. So there's a lot of strategy that goes into the geo-targeting itself. So this is a big one and very important to a lot of our systems.
Yeah, it's the easiest way we find a lot of that budget gets wasted. So territory compliance and geo-targeting is incredibly important. And just for the sake of competition, we don't want individual franchisees competing with each other. So when we get into the ad copy piece of it, I think one of the common misconceptions is that we use the same ad copy over and over for all locations within a brand or all locations within a region, or mobile ad copy is the same as copy that might appear on desktop. So I think ad copy is one thing that can often get lost in the mix, but yet there's a lot of opportunity to really improve campaign performance.
Yep, definitely. We do a lot of testing at this level with the ads themselves. You know, if you have hundreds of locations, you have thousands of ads and tens of thousands of ads sometimes. So you can test at scale a lot faster than just running one campaign and spending a couple $100s.
Right.
So it's really great to have that flexibility to change the ads, test new things. You know, one of the great things about working with Google as a partner is the fact that we are able to try out new betas and new products.
Absolutely.
That they have, and really a lot of the time we are able to test different things before it's available to the public. So that's really great to have in the partnership.
Yeah, and I think a key piece here is what we talk a lot about is multivariate testing. So not just testing entire pieces of an ad, but key elements, whether that's calls to action, whether that's one title versus another component of a title, or how is this particular piece of a subhead working with this particular URL. Multivariate testing is really a unique way to kind of take the best pieces of each ad, pull them together, and really see incredible lifts in performance. So ad copy is a huge piece. If you've put that much time into your keyword research, it's important to make sure that those are honestly connecting with your ads.
Definitely.
Right?
We could do a whole video on ad copy alone.
Maybe next time, right? So we've done our keyword research, we've picked the right keywords, we've developed some incredible ad copy. We still see drop-offs at times because those ads will drive someone to a homepage, for example. Why is that bad?
This is probably the most important piece of you know, the whole user experience is the landing page. You know, you definitely want to make sure you have a mobile-friendly website. And then you want to kind of be up to date on everything else when it comes to the landing page. These localized pages are very important, and really displaying the information that the user is looking for right away is really what they want. You know, when they click on an ad and go directly to that landing page, they want to pick up the phone and call someone, or you know, fill out a form and get right to business.
Right. Yeah. And if someone's clicking a site link for a menu, don't send them to a home page. Or you know, you mentioned mobile earlier. We see kind of, I think it's roughly 55% of PPC traffic can come from mobile.
Yep.
You know, I know we'll touch on mobile in a little bit, but really understanding what is that mobile user path, or what role does mobile play in that. You know, so if we're driving clicks on mobile ads, what is that user experience behind the click? So landing page is incredibly critical. You mentioned earlier too, we talk about high density, high population areas, and not just by virtue of the public, but the proximity of individual franchisees and businesses within one another. Now this creates a unique environment where some of that territory compliance becomes that much more difficult from a targeting. So metro pages, pros and cons, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, really it's a different strategy for every scenario. A lot of times systems do have metro pages in place, and when they do have those pages, we can, you know, collectively group together the funds and have one large campaign targeting the entire metro area, which is very beneficial. You do want to make sure that you have that dynamic landing page that changes to the user's location, so you can kind of serve up the right properties or locations on that landing page. So there's a lot that goes into metro campaigns, and there's a lot of different strategies out there. We've seen them all, though. So you know, there's one for each system.
Yeah. From a bid perspective, you know, one thing when we kind of onboard clients at times, we'll see what we often call is really that set it and forget it method. Whether that's at the keyword level or what have you, whether it's by metro, region, down to a particular location, kind of flat bids across the board. We know this is bad, we know this wastes budget, and there's a lot of different things, I think, particularly when it comes to local implications, always constantly optimizing those bids to make sure that, again, you're still in the position that you want to be, but not overpaying for it, I guess.
Yep, and there's a lot of questions that you want to ask yourself when looking at the keywords. Are they converting? How much are they costing? And all of these questions kind of lead up to that final answer of how do we need to change the bids per keyword, per location. And there's a lot that goes into formulas and data, big data that kind of feeds into all of this. But it comes down to this simple question: are your keywords converting? How much do they cost? What do I need to change the bid to at that point?
Not only just by location, but certainly, bid layering can get incredibly complex. There's a lot of really great tools. We've built some of our own tools to assist in this, especially scaling it. But I think, one thing that often gets overlooked are things like day parting. How are we bidding at certain times of the day, certain days of the week? How does that correlate with maybe our point of sale data to inform how, certain times of day that maybe we want to bid up? From a call perspective, if we're running ads that are click to call, when does that call volume tend to peak? How do we want to bid to make sure that we're in position 1 from 12 to 1 for potentially lunch reservations? So bid layering, I think, is as we said, incredibly complex, often overlooked, but there's also a lot of little needles in the haystack that you can find from a bid perspective to really make those dollars go far, both at a national and local level.
Yep. And I think that across an entire system, you have many different locations with different store hours and open hours. And if they have a limited budget, you want to make sure that you do have the ads running during that time, so users can pick up the phone and call them, while they're open. So it's very important to kind of understand that and understand the conversion cycle and path of the user.
Cross-device too. We all know mobile is ubiquitous at this point. I think what often gets overlooked is what role mobile has in that kind of path to purchase that we talk about. So, for maybe a particular vertical or a particular brand, mobile is really kind of that individual or that initial touch point where someone's doing a little bit of research and not necessarily converting. I think a lot of times brands will look at their mobile traffic and see their conversions aren't where they want to be. And say that mobile isn't performing the way it should. Well, there's still a lot of opportunity to kind of capture that user interest, and then hopefully, if you're taking the right steps from a cross-device perspective, moving that customer kind of down the funnel to what ultimately is a conversion.
Yep, and again, at scale, this is very beneficial because you can see kind of what's going on across the system, across the country, across a lot of traffic. So it's very beneficial and extremely valuable for the whole system.
And when we talk about near me searches too, mobile may be the conversion point, right?
Yep.
So completely different depending on what products and services you offer. I think a deeper understanding of how your mobile traffic, where it's coming from, when it's coming, and how it's performing is critical to, again, maximizing those dollars across the board. Call tracking, right? We just talked about mobile. We often see people run mobile ads and no click to call. Tremendous opportunity to capture lead volume. I think there's a lot of implications, though. It's not just a matter of capturing leads, but how are you staffing at a particular business location? What is the expectation when that customer picks up the phone? So call tracking, kind of some of the things that you really think where some brands miss the mark.
Yeah, I mean, for some of our brands, call tracking is 80% of their overall leads that come through. So it's very important to track that. Most users, they want to pick up the phone and call somebody. Maybe they just have a quick question that they need to ask, something they need to find out, or when are you guys open, or do you have this product in stock? And a lot of times those conversion phone calls are 20 seconds long.
Yep.
A lot of times they're 8 minutes long, but it's important to track all of that and then record it as well, if you can, because you have the ability to provide training for your employees, and then also track those conversions and figure out which phone calls led to those converting users.
Yep, and not only bidding to be in position 1 at a certain time when you know your call volume is high, but making sure you have people staffed to actually answer the phones if you are paying for those ads, just to kind of close the loop on hopefully and increase more conversions. So a lot of great stuff on paid search. with the way, the products that Google rolls out, the beta opportunities that you mentioned that we get a chance to see, I think things continue to change in such a way that there's a lot of kind of different levers that you can pull, particularly at the franchisee and local level, to really maximize those dollars, however large or small your budget may be. But we know paid search isn't the only product, so I think Alex is going to jump back in here and touch on some of the other stuff that you can really do to layer on top of your paid search campaigns, both at a brand level and a local level, to hopefully drive more incremental traffic and hopefully more customers to your business. All right, a lot of great stuff there on paid search, as we said. Thanks to Boyd for kind of breaking it down for us. But as I just touched on, paid search isn't the only game that Google has. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the incredible company that it is. So there's a lot of things you can do, a lot of other opportunities to take advantage of, particularly on the paid side, to kind of help complement these other efforts.
Yeah, 96% of people's time spent online is not in search. Right, so that's a pretty significant amount of time.
Yeah.
Google has a great property. It's called Google Display Network. I believe it's either the #1 or the #2 display network in the kind of the programmatic landscape. And essentially, what it allows you to do is find your customer when they're doing other things online. They might be, reading an article about how the Orioles are the class of the AL East, and so you could be able to target that person specific to that. But you know that because they were 2 days ago reading a blog about best SUVs with third-row seats, now you have that opportunity to kind of put that ad in front of them as it relates to their demographic, their psychographic, their interest-based targeting, keyword-level targeting. There's a ton of different opportunities within the Google Display Network, and it's a natural complement to your AdWords campaign, and absolutely should be a part at the franchise level.
Yep, and we talk about how kind of search is someone raising their hand in a lot of ways, looking for that information. So to your point, kind of providing that information in a very concise and targeted way that improves that user experience leads to just better and more conversions in a lot of ways.
And the other thing that people do a lot online is watch video.
Watch video.
So YouTube is actually the #2 searched property online. It's not classified as a search engine, but it also has a number of great ad formats that you can utilize at the local level. You can manage it directly through your AdWords platform, and it should be it's a natural extension for anyone doing any sort of online advertising. Remarketing. Remarketing, basic premise is someone goes to your website, they don't convert, they have some sort of action that you're looking for them to take, and then they go somewhere else a day, 2 days later. You can actually re-message them and try to bring them back into the fold. Some of the best practices there are you don't want to have the same message that they had the first time. And this is where sometimes people are like, hey, are you the guys that follow me around and give me the ad?
Stalk me on the internet.
It is that, but it's that because it's very successful. There's many opportunities for someone to kind of drop off that conversion path, especially how on the go everyone is. So this is an opportunity to take, let's say you have a 3% conversion rate. That means 97% of your traffic left and went somewhere else. Let's try to re-engage them and bring them back in.
Yep, especially if you're paying for that traffic. You've already invested dollars to bring users to your site. They've engaged with it. There is at least a level of awareness for your brand. It's funny how often brands miss this mark, spend a lot of dollars kind of doing that outreach and awareness campaign, but don't actually actively bring them back in with remarketing. So a critical component to any campaign.
And last but not least, and really should be first on your mind, is Google Analytics. So GA, as we commonly refer to it, allows us to understand where your users are coming from and how they're behaving once they get on the website. So are they coming from direct? Are they coming from different promotions? Are they coming from your paid search campaigns? Are they coming from YouTube? Did you do a promotion last month and you did some YouTube advertising? Should you see a spike in brand searches direct to your site? And then the other great part is, where are they exiting? Are they getting to a certain page and leaving? So this is understanding the behavior and how do you optimize that traffic when it comes in, and it really is the foundation of a successful marketing campaign.
Absolutely.
And one of the things we're really excited about now and in the future is in-store visits. So we talk a lot about online to offline. All of these tactics we just talked about, whether it's AdWords, GDN, YouTube, we're all engaging with people in the digital world, but ultimately, what are we trying to do?
Trying to get them to go in store.
Right? And so a number of Google reporting platforms are now allowing us to see, based on a number of different technologies, did someone take this action and then actually walk in to your location?
Yep.
And that's becoming the really the holy grail of this digital marketing world, is understanding from that online to offline conversion path, and then tying that back to ROI, and is allowing us then to model this for future campaigns to understand where we should be investing our digital marketing dollars to provide that biggest ROI.
Yep, it's pretty incredible too. And you think as it continues to advance, what I'm excited to see is how each channel and all these things ultimately tie together. Because right now we know store visits is very much paid search. It seems that eventually all of these properties are going to be able to kind of contribute to this store visits metric. So.
Yeah, and the kind of that word attribution, right? What actually drove that action? We know that for you and I to make a decision, it takes us 10 touch points to decide what we're going to do, even if it is a near me search.
Yep.
So we might go to do a search and then be targeted on GDN and then watch a video and then actually make that action.
Or read a review, or I mean, you name it.
Exactly. So understanding all those various touch points and how they tie together is key to really being able to successfully manage these campaigns.
Yep. So kind of in summary, we talked a little bit about at the beginning around balancing national and local. What would you say the 3 things at the national level, at the brand level for a franchise system or multi-location business, what do we need to do?
So what we found to be really successful is the national ad fund should manage brand terms, right? And these are not localized brand terms, but just regular brand terms. And that ad copy and messaging should be around those branding campaigns. The other thing that lends itself to the national campaigns is really that retargeting. Because what might happen is you might do a search on this location, but then you're actually 2 towns over.
Right.
So the retargeting doesn't necessarily have to be at the location level, but more on the brand level. And then the other big piece is that national should be in charge of the territory compliance to make sure that people are advertising in the right areas to the right people.
Absolutely. When we get to the local level, I think that's where non-brand, kind of following those non-brand long tail terms, because again, that's typically you're going to see lower cost per clicks for those. It allows individual locations to maximize that budget that much more. And the closer you can get to that kind of long tail, even exact match, non-branded term, especially if it's got a geo modifier, that's where you can really start to appear in position 1 and capture those hyper-local searches.
So we talked about earlier about the competition, especially on a mobile device, right? So you want to identify your core keywords and drive them to a very specific location with very localized ad copy. You want that user to know that location is near you and give you all the right call to actions to get there right away.
Yep.
And the other piece that's great at the local level is that call tracking, so that if I'm a franchisee, I can understand how people are interacting with my staff and maybe providing some training opportunities for them to get better and increase that close rate.
So whether we're talking about national and local, I think one of the big things that can't be stressed enough is really the support at the local level, whether that's through support teams, through the technology, particularly through the reporting that shows franchisees how their hard-earned marketing dollars are impacting their business.
Absolutely.
Incredibly important at the local level.
Yeah, we spoke earlier about trust, right? And allowing these franchisees to trust that their dollars are being spent efficiently. So there's a few really key ways to do that. Number 1 is education. It's a very complicated world. The digital marketing landscape changes on a daily basis. So creating specific resources to allow the franchisees to educate themselves, but also having real people answer those questions and work with them to understand their campaigns. And the other big piece of that is reporting. So being transparent to what data they can see and really what's happening in their campaigns. And that's where we're really excited about our Local Act reporting platform. So Local Act is our software with a service of Location 3 to provide really sophisticated digital marketing specific to Google tactics at the franchisee level. So this is an example of what a franchisee would log into. They're able to see very simply how much they spent, what their cost per click was, their click-through rate, all with very detailed explanations about all those KPIs mean. And then they're able to drill in there and see which keywords actually drove leads and
Yep.
calls. They can listen to calls. So at the end of the day, that franchisee logs in, they understand I spent $100, and for that $100, I got 100 clicks, and those 100 clicks turned into 20 customers.
Yep.
And they're going to know what those customers are worth for them, and then they work with our team to try to get more. And that's really about the name of the game for Location 3 and Local Act is harnessing the power of all of Google's tools to provide substantial ROI for our franchisees.
A lot of great stuff today. We're obviously incredibly passionate about franchise digital marketing. It's no surprise that Google plays a huge role in that. So we're excited to see kind of the new products and tools available to us in the future and continue to really advance franchise digital marketing at Location 3.
Yeah, and thanks for spending some time with us today. Hopefully we were able to educate you a little bit about some best practices in franchise digital marketing and how to take advantage of all the great tools that Google has for us.
Thanks for hanging out.